Hello, everyone. So I am calling the advisory committee meeting to order at 6:34 on March 10th, 2021 with our Zoom meeting. John, do you have a quorum? You don't, right? You just
No,
got
we
to-
don't.
Okay, so you're fine. All right. Let me blow up what I got to read here so I can see it. Okay, pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Southborough Advisory Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Southborough's website at www.southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner by finding the meeting at www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. All right, let's go so Julie can get to her other meeting. So Andrew Dennington has spent a lot of time with Julie recently, so I'm going to let him kind of lead this discussion. So Andrew, why don't you take over and then turn it over to Julie and to Marika.
Okay, so Julie is from, you were the chair, right, of the Economic Development
Not
Committee?
anymore. John's the chair now.
Okay, the former
This
chair.
year broke me, yes.
Former chair and the chair. But Julie has spent a lot of time working on Article 40, and the genesis of this is that for a long time there has been a lot of public sentiment that our downtown could use kind of a shot in the arm in terms of new energy investments, etc. And there is this is constrained by the current zoning bylaw, which the only basically you can't have the type of mixed use development you could have is very restricted, and Julie can speak to that in more detail. So so Julie and the EDC have taken the lead in putting together a draft of a revision to the town's bylaw to create a new downtown district, and there would be different uses permitted in that district. So this is one of the most kind of complicated and challenging things you can do. And the EDC and Julie have spent a tremendous amount of time working on this, which is good, trying to bring together a bunch of stakeholders, including the Board of Selectmen. And I think on at least the current draft of this article is sponsored by the Board of Selectmen.
That's correct.
So is all that basically correct, Julie?
That's right. Thank you.
Okay. So Julie's probably more knowledgeable about this than anyone. And I think with that, without further ado, I'll just turn it over to her.
Thank you, Andrew and Kathy, and thank you for inviting me here. I really appreciate it. And so my thought tonight was just to take a little bit of time, and I know some of you here have heard my spiel before, so I'll try not to go too into the weeds, but sort of how we got here, why we think zoning is important, and then more substantively, what changes, what the practical implications of the changes that we're proposing would look like should it pass at town meeting. Marika, can you share screens yet?
She definitely has the access to. There we go.
Great, thank you. So I love this shot of downtown. It's just, I feel like it sort of sums up where we are, and we have a beautiful town, and parts of downtown are beautiful, but this is one of our main intersections, and you know, it could be better. I'll leave it at that.
It's forlorn.
You can switch slides, Marika. And please, at any time during this, feel free to interrupt me as well. I don't need to be presenting. We can talk about this. Marika found these incredible pictures, and they're from different points in time, but all about 100 years ago in the early part of the 1900s, of what the town what Main Street used to look like, sort of a then and now. And some of you may have seen these before because I just think they're so impactful. But we tried to capture the same, views and intersections in different areas. And the second one just sort of baffles me because, it's the same building and somehow it seems it's been made worse. And I'm not sure why, but, they took out a window. It's just, it used to be a more attractive. Can you keep going? Mike, you can do the next slide. Thanks. Again, I know there's been a lot of discussion about making sure that sorry, can you go back one more? Back to the second, then and now. No, sorry, back.
Other way.
Backwards, back to the second, then and now. One more. Either way, so there's been a lot of talk about what, making sure that nothing we put down there is too big and that it's not too tall. But if you look, and again, I'm very supportive of making sure that the sizing is appropriate for the space. But if you look at historically, Marika, can you go to slide 3? Some of those buildings were actually pretty tall. There was a school there. There was the old inn there that were actually pretty substantial sizes. One more, Marika. Sorry. Yes, this
It looks
one.
like in 1930, the town was much more vibrant than it is today.
Exactly. You get that feel of vibrancy, much more so than now. So yeah, if you look at the Southport Arms at the bottom or the school at the top, I mean, that's a 4-story building and 4 tall stories from what it looks like from the windows. So just, so saying that, there's no space downtown to put something that might be, more than a story or 2, I think is just not completely accurate. So just real quick on the map, can you go to the map, Marika? When we're talking about the downtown area, the current, what we didn't do was change the actual map of the zoning. Marika, can you go to the map? But so you'll see that outlined pink area. It kind of extends, obviously, Main Street running down the middle, but then sort of Park Street. Marika, can you get to the map? Is there? Thank you. So Main Street, obviously, running down the middle.
Sorry,
and
you want them? This is the map.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, perfect.
Sorry.
And on the right-hand side going down is Newton Street, changing over to Boston Road on the right. On the left side, you'll see all the way on the left, 11 Main Street, which is the building where the former Santander building, and then running alongside of it, School Street, and Park Street that sort of juts diagonally out at the bottom. And then there's kind of that weird part down below, which it runs, you'll see that line running sort of vertically through the middle. That looks like a street, but it's actually the railroad right of way. And for some reason, when the district was originally drawn, had something to do with the measurement from that. So you'll see that at the bottom, on the bottom left there, those pink portions are actually split lots. So those are actually homes on Matasquama, where the back parts of their property are for some reason designated commercial. But nothing commercial could be built there because there's no road frontage. So by the current or proposed zoning bylaw, nothing could actually be built there commercially or otherwise. So, but that's the map, that's the area that we're looking at. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So a brief history without going too in the weeds here. We've been working on this for more than 3 years now, and I've been part of the Economic Development Committee since its inception, which was in 2013. As I started getting involved and looking at different economic issues in town, the question that always came up when I told people I was on the Economic Development Committee was, well, what are you guys doing about downtown? So at some point, enough of us members were hearing that, where we said, okay, well, let's take this anecdotal, evidence that we're seeing and let's see what people really want. So we put out a survey. We got a fair amount of responses, 427, and we found that there was a fair amount of dissatisfaction with the downtown. 86% of respondents said that they were not satisfied with the shopping and dining opportunities downtown. Some other statistics that came out of there, 90% wanted more restaurants, 67% wanted some level of small scale retail, and most people were not opposed. So the way we asked the question, it was support, maybe or need more information, or oppose. Only 15% were opposed, and the 85% said that they would consider supporting or would support mixed use residential. So we found that really interesting. And from there, we took that information and we engaged a group called the Urban Land Institute. And they are an institute, they're quasi-governmental, I believe, and they work with municipalities on targeted areas to help make improvements. So they came and they spent a full day with us from like 8 in the morning till 9 at night. They met with all these stakeholders. That was after many, many meetings that we had in preparation of that, where we gave them all this different information about the town. And they put together a report for us. And the substance of that report was that there were 2 main factors that were inhibiting development downtown. One of them was that our zoning bylaw was incredibly antiquated. And the second was that our wastewater infrastructure was not sufficient, which we all know. So we decided we should probably focus our attention on those 2 items. Next slide, Marika. So we came to this conclusion, but it's certainly not a new conclusion. In 2008, the town's master plan said as their top goal was to promote growth and development within the downtown and encourage mixed use. In 2015, the housing production plan encouraged mixed use development. And if you see, it's partially covered on my screen, I don't know if you can see it, but the picture that's in the top right-hand corner of this slide is actually Moreau's store with a rendering of a pretty facade and residential units above it. So that's sort of an example of mixed use that was put forth in the 2015 housing production plan. We're currently working on a new version of the master plan committee. That's where I will be when I'm done with you guys here. And they put out a survey, and the portion of it that was relevant to the downtown asked a lot of very similar questions to what we had asked in our survey a few years ago, got similar answers. This is what people are looking for. So again, none of this is new. It's just that nothing has been done about it. So there's been a lot of town resources, people resources and man hours and money that have been put into these studies and these reports. And we're still working with a bylaw that was put forth, I believe, in the 1950s. Marika, you can go to the next slide. So when we talk about what we're looking for, and this again is based on 1, the results we received from the survey, 2, the master plans, the housing production committee, the housing production plan, and the sort of town goals as set forth in the master plan. There are several things that people are looking for, and this also aligns very much with the state's goals and what they're asking communities to do. They're asking communities to build spaces that are mixed use, so residential, commercial, places where people, the tagline that the state often uses is work, play, live. So they want people to be able to have, pedestrian access, bicycle access, and have a mix of commercial and residential property near each other. This actually has a lot of benefits that support both economic development and also the town's goals. As you may have noticed, our town lacks a bit of housing diversity. And that has some ramifications that come along with it. So for economic development purposes, there are lots of companies that are in Southborough or surrounding towns. And in our work and speaking with a lot of these different businesses and communities over the years, one of the complaints we've heard from people from businesses is that they sometimes have trouble attracting talent, because if you're 25 and graduated college and or looking for a job in biotech, which there's lots of those in Southborough, you might not want to come here and buy a 4-bedroom colonial house for $900,000. So we're lacking a little bit of diversity in housing. This also, having greater housing diversity promotes economic diversity, and it also is a resource for seniors or for those who maybe their families have grown up and but they are committed to the town and have ties to the town and want to stay here, but maybe want to downsize. And so mixed use or smaller housing diversity options benefit seniors as well. So that's, and all of these sort of align with what we're hearing through the survey and the town's goals and the state's goals. So that brought us to, and you can change slides, Marika, but that brought us to our revision to the bylaw. So we've been working on this for quite some time. We first looked at the current zoning bylaw and the mixed use provision. This was probably about 2 years ago that we started looking at this. And what we noticed was that you can have a night watchman over your printing press, but you cannot have a residential over commercial use. So it's just a very antiquated mixed use definition. It contemplated businesses that are no longer relevant, and it did not contemplate having residential and commercial sharing space. So that's sort of our main goal of what we wanted to change. So I wanted to talk about kind of what I saw as the 4 big changes that we were looking at, and actually one of them might no longer be relevant, but I'll talk about it anyway. So just to backtrack a little bit, what we ended up doing, we started looking at it, we realized we really needed a professional. We were very fortunate through the work of Marika and Claire Reynolds to obtain grant money that helped us to engage a specialist, a consultant. So we actually had 2. We have an attorney and we have a zoning consultant, Judy Barrett, who is very familiar with Southborough. She had actually worked with the ZAC, a decade or so ago when that venture was going through. So we're very fortunate to have their talent and their resources, and we were basically able to say, okay, here's what we envision. How do we write this in a way that to bring that vision to reality? What are the measurements? What are the factors that need to be incorporated to make that work? So we started by talking about by right uses. So right now, if you want to do anything commercial downtown, you have to go get a use permit from the planning board. And this has some disadvantages. One, it's an extra step. It's often a long step, and it creates an uncertainty for a proponent coming forward to start a business or to build a building, in that they don't know, whether their use will be accepted. So we said, okay, well, what are we looking for? Let's be the drivers. Let's be the visionaries. Let's put together a list of the kind of uses that we want to encourage in a vibrant downtown that we think fit with the vision that we have based on all the information that we've gathered over the past couple of years. So we came up with a list of permitted uses. So what these uses would do, it would mean that you wouldn't have to go to the planning board to get a special permit for your use. So it just removes one step, and it signals to a developer or a business owner or somebody looking to come and bring something to the downtown that, okay, they want this type of business. They want me to succeed in this venture. So it serves sort of multiple purposes to have that. So some of the, so they're all listed here. But the uses that we are allowing by right include mixed use development. So that's residential with commercial, business, office, banking, custom manufacturing, which I don't know if it sounds, what that really means is very small scale. So it's, you know, woodworking, artisan shops, craft person, bakery, bed and breakfast, art gallery, childcare center, co-working center. And then in addition, permitted uses up to 3,000 square feet for retail and ice cream, sandwich shops, specialty food services, restaurants, personal services. So for those uses under those specifications, we're saying you don't have to go get a special permit. Anything else you would have to. Right, you want to switch slides? So design guidelines. So what we talked about, there's sort of two components to zoning. So there's sort of the, what's the height requirement? What's the setback requirement? You know, how much square footage can you take up over a space? How much green space do you want? There are those measurements, but there's also a more nuanced design component, and that can be everything from signage to types of plants that you have, to types of building materials. Those would all encompass sort of the design elements of a project. So we decided to separate those out. And that's common. We did a lot of research on what other communities similar to Southborough are doing. And the reason for that is that, as we know, zoning is very difficult to change. It's been tried and failed many times. We've basically had the same zoning in place for more than half a century. So, you know, zoning is not intended to be changed easily. However, certain things do change. And specifically, when I think about this, I think about materials that, you know, as we move into, you know, dealing with environmental factors and other things like that, and as we innovate, what materials might change and how might that affect how we want design done. So our proposed bylaw contemplates that there would be separate design guidelines. We prepared a draft and shared it with the planning board, but they would be ultimately promulgated and enforced by the planning board. So they would have, you know, they would have the authority to review and make sure that a project is in compliance with the design standards. But another benefit of this is that it provides a proponent of a project with a vision and with some certainty as to what we're looking for. So a comment that we've received from people who have come in to do projects is that they sometimes feel like they're going in blind, and that they don't know what might be acceptable or not. So this kind of gives those developers or builders a roadmap as to what we think is acceptable, what we're looking for, so that they can plan accordingly. And this will hopefully help streamline the process, make it go faster, eliminate surprises, and make people more confident in investing, because they can have a little bit more certainty that their project will be able to ultimately be successful. So, but again, we want this to be a little bit more flexible and malleable. In 10 years from now, when, you know, when design styles change, when materials are innovated and things like that. Next, Marika. So this is the one that I'm hoping is not going to be part of the final, not be part of the final bylaw. We had discussed the floor area ratio. So basically that means the amount of square footage versus the amount of square footage of a building versus the amount of square footage of the lot. I believe the only reason I haven't taken this out and why I'm still mentioning it is because we're still waiting for a revision to the bylaw, which I think we're getting tomorrow. This has not been voted on by the Board of Selectmen or by any other board or committee yet, but we're planning to actually do away with this entire concept. Planning board, representatives of planning board, Board of Selectmen, and EDC each thought that that made sense. So I think we're doing away with this concept, so I'm not going to bother going into it. But if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. Next slide, Marika. And then mixed use, this probably should have been the first of our 4 slides, because this is sort of what it all comes back down to, is this opportunity for mixed use development in a more modern and more, modern, I guess is the right word, interpretation of what mixed use means, which is this concept of a mix of retail and commercial and or office. So that's what we're going for. That's what started this. We think that has great economic development advantages, but also we really think of this, and we talk about this a lot, we really think of this as community building. I mean, the downtown has some beautiful parts to it, and we really see it as the heart of the community, but it needs a little bit more. And I think it can be improved. And I think that all of the businesses that are existing there would actually benefit from a little bit of an upgrade that would drive more traffic downtown, drive more users downtown, be a place for people to gather with their families, with their neighbors, grab an ice cream, grab a beer, grab lunch. We hear the residents, and there's a lot of consensus around things like bike racks, benches, green space, walkability. So it's not just about putting in stores. We also hear a lot about, there's pretty broad consensus about not chains, about small scale mom and pops, coffee shops, things like that. So, I think there's pretty broad consensus about a shared vision. And what we're hoping is that this zoning bylaw would lay the foundation for that vision. And obviously, this isn't going to change overnight. But right now, there's not an opportunity for the vision that we have to come to fruition, and we think this is the first step in laying the foundation to allow for that to happen. So that's all I really have, but I'm certainly happy to stay for as long as you guys want. Answer any questions that you guys have. Our next step here is hopefully town meeting. We have a reserved spot for a warrant article on this. And we are going to need a lot of people to come out and vote. So we're hoping that we can, answer people's questions and get people excited about this so that they'll come out and vote for it.
Boy, it looks so nice. Julie, planning board they've opened a hearing, correct?
Correct.
And they've had 1 hearing, is that true?
2.
2, and they are going to have a 3rd soon?
I think their intent is to have sort of a rolling hearing each week to allow, or each 2 weeks that they have, or bi-monthly that they have their meetings, to allow time on their agenda to allow the public to weigh in until town meeting, so forever.
So I know Andrew has listened at least to one of them, maybe the last one. Andrew, you want to update us on where you think the planning board is at this point?
Well, actually, sure. I really
Or if you think you want
know
to tell us, that's fine. But I think at some point before Julie goes, we ought at least update everybody on where we think they stand.
Sure. The main issue that's been talked about at these last 2 hearings has been the map, right? And that's kind of the intent of this, right, is not to promote commercial development in any place where it is a residential area, right? So what's weird about this is to keep it streamlined, simple. This proposal was we're not going to make any changes to the boundaries of existing zoning districts. But one of the things that's come out in this discussion is that when you look at this, start looking at these maps carefully, and actually, Marika, if you could show the the map that we're talking about. There's the current business village district splits some lots. So if you see the area there that goes along the railroad tracks there, south, kind of the southwest part, that is really weird that that purple line splits through some lots there. But the key point is this is the existing condition. There is no proposal to have weird plot lines that cut through people's yards. This is the existing zoning. And so theoretically, you know, someone at one of these properties could say, oh, well, my backyard is zoned business village. So I could theoretically, you know, have someone request I could seek like a special permit to have a bank, build a bank. I mean, no one's going to do that. It's so impractical. So while it would be nice to try to clean up all these boundary lines, that is really hard, confusing. And I don't know if this can really all be done, you know, in the next, between now and annual town meeting. But there's so much good momentum and hard work that's been put in by the EDC, Claire, everyone, that, you know, I think this is ready for prime time. And the issues of the boundaries of the map is something that could probably be dealt with later, because the bottom line is, you know, the fact that these boundaries cross some lots is an existing feature. This article is not proposing to newly do that. It doesn't create some problem that doesn't already exist. So the hearing was continued, and Kathy, I don't know what is the deadline where the warrant actually gets printed, and that's
Right now, the plan is late April.
yeah. So I mean, the thing, I think that there's, you know, I'm not a mind reader, but I think that, you know, the Board of Selectmen has also been supportive of this, and you know, that nothing is going to be. This is such a complicated, difficult thing. You're never going to get it perfect, but it's very good. So that's the objective, is to try to get it as very good as possible. And then, so this is something I can say that I became very interested in, because when I was in the ZBA, there was a proposal of an applicant to build a building downtown that was a mixed use building, which would have a commercial space in the ground floor, like a bakery or a shop, and then apartments on the top. And the thing that came out of this hearing was that that's not permitted in the business village district currently, or really anywhere in Southborough under current zoning. The only legal apartments are grandfathered apartments, so apartments that existed before the zoning bylaw was enacted, 40B permitted apartments, or accessory apartments. So one big picture is, does that make any sense? Does it make sense to have a town where apartments are illegal if they don't fall into any of those categories? And it's certainly not consistent with having a diversity of housing types in town. You know, another kind of point that I think of is, like, we have a community where most of the businesses, a lot of businesses are in Route 9, and it's not as conducive to having a community feel where there's one central place where people can gather. You know, the town's downtown compares unfavorably to places like Ashland, Hopkinton, and those are bigger communities. That doesn't mean, though, that, you know, Southborough has to have a moribund downtown. So that's one of the reasons I am interested in it. And you know, on the apartment piece,
Based on what you heard, or Julie from the planning board, is if you can kind of see where you think they're going, if there seems to be a consensus by the questions they're asking, whatever, if they're getting hung up on this little, the piece that is in the backyards of people that is commercial. So Mr. Rooney, when you were on Board of Selectmen, Would you guys ever consider voting in favor of this if you knew the planning board were against it?
Probably not. I think the biggest, trying to compare it to the Main Street intersection project, because we got a lot of hue and cry about how it was going to forever ruin the downtown or the small town character of the town and the rural nature. And so we had a lot of that going on. Andrew or Julie, are you getting that same sort of, I wouldn't call it negative, but feedback relative to next steps here?
So that's a really interesting point, because I feel like a couple years ago, I heard the Economic Development Committee, we set off doing this and said, we really want to be transparent. We really want to have community involvement in this, because this isn't about us. And I know that sounds cheesy and cliche, but I want to make improvements downtown that people want, like that. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. So we held multiple forums. I think we've had 4 or 5 of them since we started this project that were, and we advertised in any way we could. A few of them we even went door to put in. John Wood was amazing and figured out how to get like a mail drop. So everybody in town, or at least all the abutters, received in the mail a card that invited them to this specific forum back in the days when we were doing things live. And so we did hear a little bit of that. And of course, there are always going to be some people who say that. I haven't heard much of that at all since we proposed this bylaw. I don't think that, and the point of this bylaw is not to, is to preserve that sort of small town character and feel. The things that we're hearing that are of concerns are sort of these off issues like the map. So the map is a newer issue that was raised. When we first brought this to the planning board, we said our main goal was mixed use. So we brought it to the planning board and said, hey, you have a mixed use provision. It's pretty terrible. It's pretty antiquated, but we just want to have residential and commercial together. So can we just add, mixed use as one of the items? And they said, no, it's more complicated than that. And then we went back and engaged experts and all that kind of stuff. But the map was never raised. And I frankly see it sort of become the issue that took up a lot of time, at least at last night's meeting and at another meeting that we had as well. And I understand the concern that it's weird. It's weird that it's like that. It's weird that there are split lots. However, the proposal that we have on the table doesn't change that weirdness one way or another. If the planning board wants to change the map, I think that's a great idea. I think there's room to change the map potentially in other ways. I know that there are people in town who have wanted to be part of the zoning of the business village district, who in the past have come forward and asked to be and have been denied. Maybe there's room to change the boundaries in other areas. I don't know. But that's not the issue that we have on the table. The issue that we brought forward was what uses would be permitted there without a permit. And that's it. So that doesn't add any element of risk to those folks who own those properties. And the other issue is that I don't think it's necessarily as easy as just saying, okay, then we'll take those out of the equation and we'll change the map and we'll, get rid of those split lots and make all those properties just residential. I have zero problem with that, practically speaking. I don't care. That's fine. We're not developing in somebody's backyard on Esquama. There's just no way. Plus, there's a train track running through there.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
the reason, Kathy, I asked the question in response to the question that you asked me is that, for the 10 years or whatever that I was more involved, the planning board, rightfully so, always had that overriding concern about, the small town feel, the rural community. And I was just interested in is that a continued concern being expressed either by the planning board or residents? No? Okay.
Certainly not by the planning board. And we've had 2 hearings from planning board and a forum, and we have not heard that voiced as a significant concern in any of those forums.
And the
Okay.
concerns that you are hearing primarily relate to this, the map and the fact that it invades or cuts certain lots in half?
Correct.
Okay.
And there was.
How many lots? Two?
I think it's 7. Oh, go ahead, John. Sorry. Or, I'm sorry, it's not my meeting. I didn't say go ahead, John. But John's raising his hand.
May I just say something real quick? So Sarah in the planning department, on the planning board, sent out an email yesterday. She's been researching this plot because this isn't our purview. I don't want to pretend that this map has anything to do with the EDC. This is purely a planning thing. It doesn't affect the bylaw as written. It doesn't make it any worse, any better. It's been that map forever. So she looked into it, and the Zach back in had looked into separating these lots out of that zoning. So she just sent out an email today. I haven't had time to really read the timeline and look at the maps, but one of them showed that Zach was trying to figure out how to get rid of that. So the planning board has, they won't have to reinvent the wheel. They can look and see what Zach did back in the day on that. But again,
But there's no time to change a map before town meeting. Everybody agree with it? So it's got to be done separately and after the fact.
and it doesn't affect the bylaw at all. You know what I mean?
And it just sounds like the planning board is getting hung up on something that doesn't, what you're proposing doesn't make it worse, doesn't make it better. It's already there. It is what it is.
It's a resident that's worried about it as well. So he's bringing up his concerns, and the plan is serious, which is nice, and they're looking into it.
I mean, isn't the most compelling, at least pictorial or argument you have, is that I think it was a 1930s photo compared to the present day photo. And I'm not sure that there would be anyone in town who would prefer the current look over the look of 70 years ago.
Really?
Because I had not seen that photo, that 1930s photo before. And to me, that is really, it's almost troubling.
So 3 things with this bylaw too. Business lowers taxes, whether it's $5, $10, business downtown, bringing in, it's not taxing the system. It brings in revenue. If you have housing diversity, which is something we've been looking for, and it's been in the master plan since 2008. It's been in the housing production plan in 2015. It's in the 2015 housing production plan. It's in this master plan. It's just time.
Is there any, I'm sorry, Kathy, I have one more question. Is there any data or empirical evidence that building this downtown or reconditioning this downtown would help the vacancy rates on Route 9? Or is that, do those two not connect, or do they connect in your mind?
A little, yes. That's my job. So Julie has been killing it on the downtown district, and thank you for that, Julie. My job, I do the business outreach with Marika, and we go and talk to all the business owners, not the business owners, the building owners, the brokers. Yes, so having the sidewalks on Route 9 helps. Having some place for their employees to go as a sense of place is something to do. Biggest problem on Route 9 though is a bit different. We're working on that. It's last mile, it's different zoning, and access, Route 9 access, like crossovers at Parkerville would help, different things like that, John.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, John,
yes,
correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like every week there are additional vacancies.
believe it or not, Southborough's in pretty good shape right now. We're at about a 20.
I think we lost you, John, or at least I did.
Yeah, I can't hear you, John.
What now? Am I back?
You're scratchy.
Hey, while he's figuring that out, Julie, if you were to summarize the two most recent or forceful complaints or pushback from this, what would they be?
I think one is the map. There have also been a fair number of comments from abutters about the concern of water because that's already an existing concern of drainage. So there are some concerns that adding more, taking away the picture that's right there, the lot, the 2 East Main, taking away that space gives, again, less places for absorption, and that could contribute to the problem that's already there for some of the abutters. There were a couple comments about concerns, about noise if we have restaurants late at night. There were one or two comments about that, or lights, and how that might affect abutters. Those are things that can certainly be controlled for in the design guidelines. But I think those are sort of sum up most of the negative or the concerns that we've heard.
Kathy, if I
And
may.
the map, it's taken up a lot of time, but it's actually really only been one commenter, and now it's been taken up by the planning board. So, and as John said, I just believe, and Kathy said very well, this is a separate issue. And even if we wanted to, we wouldn't be able to get it in this bylaw for town meeting. And we don't even know what the residents who own those lots, how they feel about it. They might not want to, they might not want to change the zoning on their property. So obviously those stakeholders would need to be involved as well.
Tim, go ahead.
Couple comments. So Julie first, hi. Nice
Hi.
to see you again.
Nice to see you too.
I do want to mention that your consultant does not accept all feedback. So you may not have received positive or negative feedback from citizens of the town.
Tim, what do you mean by that?
Meaning I did submit feedback and it was rejected. This was several months ago.
When you say rejected, in what form was it rejected? Sent back to you, or they just? said
Yes, I
rejected?
was informed that it wasn't formatted properly, so she wouldn't look at it.
Well, that's not helpful.
No, particularly somebody who's being paid by us to get feedback. So that's something I think that you should be aware of. I do not know how many people in this town have been screened that way, but I certainly was.
So, and I didn't know that, but I do recall that Judy had sent out a form and asked people to use the form. And I remember I saw the feedback, I believe, before it went through. I don't recall, if there were others. I don't think there were others who didn't use the form, but that should have been communicated to you in a way that you could, that was, yeah, I hear you.
Okay, I'm just letting you know, you might not have the whole picture. John, I would be careful of looking at pictures. My family's from Woonsocket, Rhode Island, which was a booming town back when the mills were live. And I can show you lots of pictures that show the opposite story, right? So I would
Yeah,
just be
Tim,
careful of that.
Not so much in the comparison, but on the present day, that to me is, that's what it looks like. And I'm not sure that would be misleading or deceiving. And that
Yeah.
to me does not look like having any degree of vibrancy or any degree of being called a downtown. Again, that's just me.
No, I agree with you, John, in what you just said. I think a lot of people are in favor of this concept. The question is, how do we implement it and ensure that our shared vision is what the developers are building and not their vision of how to make a buck? Okay, which leads me to some other questions. Julie, can you tell me where are we at with the number of apartments that are going to be allowed to be built?
I believe, and so they're not being defined as apartments, they're residential units, so they could be, leased or sold, they could be condo units.
Yep.
I believe, actually, I need to pull it up. We've changed it a few times. Marika, do you know off the top of your head, or John, or let me pull up the bylaw. I think we landed at 12, but
Yeah.
I want to make
So
sure that that's correct.
And this is outside of the major site development.
So I believe that they cannot be, and if, we discussed this recently, and one thing that we wanted to make sure was clear in the iteration, the next round of the bylaw, that, the intent is not to allow just freestanding apartments. It would have to be a mixed use space with a commercial component.
I think that's good, but just to reiterate the point, this is the only zone in town that allows up to 12 units of apartments. It's the only zone in town that allows that without a major site review. It's the only zone in
There-
town that
There would
allows
be, there
that.
would be
Go ahead.
site plan
There
review.
would still be
Site plan
site plan
review is
review.
not being taken away.
Major site plan review?
I believe so.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, because an earlier iteration I saw did not have that. And then
And
the
then-
follow-up is if there's no major site review, then the required affordable housing unit that goes into that would not be part of this necessarily.
Right, no, we are, I believe, and again, this is that was one of the issues that has been discussed and debated, but I believe where we stand now is that we intend to have an affordable housing component
Okay.
in there.
At least 12.5% for 4 units, Tim, so which when you
Okay,
round
so
up,
it's
it's at least
comparable,
1 out of 4.
roughly.
Yes. And-
Okay. And that would be up to the planning board as
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah, and in one of the hearings and one of the forums that might have been in with a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen or whatever, when we were talking about the design guidelines with Adam Costa, the attorney, and Donnie Morris, the chair of the planning, it almost sounded like he thought like the design guides doesn't take power away from planning. It actually gives them more authority, which was nice as well. And I think they were on board with that. You know, a lot of when John had asked about what concerns we're hearing, there's misinformation on scale. Everybody thinks it's going to be large scale, Park Central and stuff down there. There's just not the space. It just can't happen down there. We don't have the land. It's nothing's, you know what I mean? It's more small scale.
Depends.
The biggest piece of property that's down there now, if somebody bought up everything and
Yeah,
put it in there,
That's conceivable.
yeah, but
Right,
more than likely it'd be St. Mark's that did that.
And
Yeah,
that
what's
was
the
going to be another
status-
question, actually.
This-
How many of these lots are owned by St. Mark's? Because if you're letting them put up 12 apartment units and bringing teachers in with families, how many children are going to be in our school systems without paying tax?
You know, I don't know how many lots that St. Mark's bought that are in there now, Tim.
What's
Okay, so
the
I-
status of that-
That's a very valid question. because I-
What's the status of that corner lot there? I think it's owned by Mr. Bemis. Is that not right, or?
That's
Yes,
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, so John, this is probably my biggest concern is what this will enable St. Mark's and Fay to do.
Sure.
The lots that they can buy, the apartments that they can shove up there, the number of teachers and their families they can put in there. And now all of a sudden, we're just creating an assembly line for them to put their kids in our schools for free.
Tim, I couldn't agree with you more.
Absolute legitimate concern.
37% of the town is off the tax roll. 37% of the town, of the property in town is off the tax roll.
Can we do anything about that in our bylaw in terms of restrictions?
That's something I'm happy to bring to our consultant and ask. I agree that's a legitimate concern. And I'm certainly happy to raise that because I'm not going to say it better than you and John have.
Yeah, I'm not sure you're going to be able to, I mean, the allegation would be discriminating against them by having some prohibition of them renting an apartment. And Tim, I know that's not where you're leaning, but I think that's how it will be spun.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's, from their side, they'll say it's, as you say, discriminatory. From our side, it's predatory.
But
And-
even if you got St. Mark's or Fay to agree to going forward to, of course, these are apartments, so let's assume they own it, right? Not rent. That they're going to pay full real estate taxes on anything they buy going forward. So let's just say that's our pipe dream, right? Do you still want that to all be Fay School and St. Mark's living there? I mean, that's not what we're trying to accomplish here, right? We want the diversity. We want
Right.
people to
Exactly.
buy things and go out to the restaurants that may be there. So Julie, stay on the big picture for a second as far as trying to get this through this town meeting in May. This is March 10th, right? It sounds like you guys are still tweaking the language in the bylaw from what I just heard you
Yeah,
say.
I think we're really close. The planning board, we brought this to planning in the fall. The Board of Selectmen was behind it. When I say we, I mean EDC and Board of Selectmen. Our consultant drafted it in consultation with us. We've had multiple meetings that have been joint meetings between EDC, planning, SHOPC, and Board of Selectmen. And most recently, about only a couple of weeks ago, if that, planning gave us some new comments. So we had a couple of discussions about those. Those comments, we've come to consensus. I think we've come to consensus on just about everything, on any of the points that were sort of pain points. We're very, very close there. So I'm hoping that this draft that we're hopefully getting tomorrow is going to be in pretty close to final form and be very close to what we present as a warrant article.
Consensus with the planning board.
We're incorporating all the comments that we've agreed on with representatives from the planning board.
As well as the Board of Selectmen.
as well as-
I haven't watched either hearing. Do the people who've watched the hearing think that it looks like planning board is trying to get this done for this town meeting, that they seem to want to get this done?
I'm not going to speculate on that. I don't think, but when we've had meetings that are joint meetings, we've reached broad consensus. A lot of the issues that have come up have been outside of the spectrum of the 4 pages of the document.
May I say one thing more to Tim? Tim, this bylaw is more commercial than set up as a residential thing. The mixed use has to have, so with St. Mark's, if they want to do anything, they would have to have a commercial part of that building as well. And only a certain percentage of it can be residential
That's
in the
good.
bylaw.
Yeah,
and-
10%, I think they can get around that.
But John and Tim, so St. Mark's and Fay don't own any property in the village district, whatever it is.
Today,
They don't own any
Today.
today.
but they have a history of,
Yeah, and they
Gobbling up
just got
territories.
approval for 12 apartments, 3 to 4 bedrooms each, as part of their residential life. It's already gone to the planning board. They built dozens of apartments on School Street. So they can build apartments. They can also invoke the Dover Amendment and build kind of what they want. But they've gone through our planning board. They've gotten approval for apartments. I don't think this bylaw is what's going to give them the green light to put up 12 more apartments without, they're still going to go through the planning board process. They just got approval this year for 12 more. So
Hey,
I don't
Andrew,
think this
unrelated,
is the
but what do
issue.
they intend to do with the fire and police station? Do you know?
I don't know at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think part of the issue that we've had, and maybe part of the reason that it's been very easy for St. Mark's, who's obviously doing well and growing and looking for that space, is that there's a problem that we have a void right now, and that developers find it difficult to bring a project forward. And they're a little shy now to do it because of all the steps that have to be gone through, because of the uncertainty, because of the history of unsuccessful projects. So we're not particularly viewed as a friendly town when it comes to putting together a project. So I think that if we can sort of flip that image, then hopefully we'll attract some investment and development that will fill that void. And if that void is not filled, that's why it's very easy for St. Mark's to come in and buy a property. But if there's something else there that's a productive use of a piece of a building or a piece of land, then that's going to be there, and St. Mark's won't buy that up.
Kathy?
Yes, sir.
I have a comment on John's comment. John, you had asked a question, something that I had thought about of, is there any relationship between this and the last mile problem? Meaning, to help fill vacant office space on Route 9. Well, I'm sorry, that's a little bit of a different thing, but attracting people to those spaces. I initially had been skeptical, like, okay, if we have a downtown that has more little places to eat, will that actually attract people who work on Route 9? And one thing that made me think that there actually is a connection, this is totally anecdotal, but I have a brother-in-law who works in one of those office buildings in Flanders Road, and I talked to him, he knows like every little shop, place to eat in all of these towns, because during the lunch hour, people get in their cars and they drive around and they're sick of going to the same 1 or 2 places on Route 9, or, so they look and they find these places and they go back and they tell their other coworkers. So it does kind of get some positive momentum. And then about the major versus minor site plan review, I just looked at the town warrant while we were doing this. So the difference between major site plan review and minor site plan review is whether or not it is it adds 2,000 square feet or more floor area. I think that's right. So everything we're talking about here is something that's going to add more than 2,000 square feet of floor area. So I think it would trigger major site plan review. By the
12 units with commercial space would probably be hopefully bigger
More than
than
2,000,
those would be
yeah.
some really small apartments.
Andrew, different place tonight. We're not used to not seeing you in your office. Julie, so again, I'm just trying to get back to process here because, last year when before COVID hit and you guys were proposing this, it clearly wasn't ready. This time, it looks like it may very well be ready. But it's still, the time's still pretty short, right? So are you just going to go to every planning board meeting now and keep talking to them? Is that the plan at this point until hopefully?
I mean, we'll make sure we have one of us there at every planning board meeting, as long as they're having hearings. We're talking about potentially doing another forum as well to answer questions for people who might not be at the planning board hearings. We want people to ask these tough questions, and we want to do our best to answer them. Obviously, we're not going to please everybody, but we're stuck in the 1950s downtown right now, and we've been trying. We've spent countless dollars and man hours. This has become my second job, the one I don't get paid for. I'm sitting here in my office right now working on this again, and it's time for something to happen, and we need to make sure that we're not losing the forest for the trees, and that we can do something that's going to make some improvement. And again, this isn't going to have an overnight impact. Maybe it never will have an impact, but it lays the foundation to allow for something to happen. And as far, I wanted to address Andrew's comment about Andrew Dennington's comment about people coming over from Route 9. I've heard that anecdotally as well. And one other piece that I didn't really touch on tonight, but that has been part of our vision from the beginning, is this notion of connectivity and making it pedestrian friendly. Obviously, Route 9 is a little bit further, but we've spoken with trails. We've Sam Stivers has this really grand vision about making like a pedestrian walkway over the reservoir or something, like some pipe dreams, but I think there is some connection there, and I think you're right that people do utilize those spaces downtown.
Just standing there on my phone.
So another practical problem, Julie, is this town meeting is outdoors, which doesn't lend itself to a nice presentation with a screen. I mean, maybe, last year we didn't have a screen at all. I don't know, with the sun, whether there's any way to get a screen. But boy, those first few slides are pretty compelling. So you need to continue to try to keep showing those slides.
Well, thank you.
Kathy, what's different this year than last year as well, this has been more of a collaborative effort. The Board of Selectmen have been involved. We've had forums with them. We've had joint meetings with Board of Selectmen, planning, and us. So it's been more collaborative. We've got a lot of input from the other boards and committees. So now I think it's just a few nuances. Yeah, I think it's really close to being ready, and I'm very hopeful. I'd like to see it brought forth at town meeting. This time I think it's close enough that we can do it.
Yeah, one practical thing that I'm sure you all recognize is that I think it would be very important, if not critical, to have planning board support at town meeting.
We're trying.
We're trying, yeah. And like I said, as far as the performance standards, which are the metrics within the bylaw that say, what can the height be? What is the setback? All of those pieces, we're in consensus with. The planning board is on board with all of that. So, I'm not sure if they're going to support it or not. No one's really made, definitive indications one way or the other. But they've been involved in the process. They've been invited to every meeting. We've had many joint meetings. So I hope that they do. And like I said, I think some of the concerns that have been raised are sort of outside of the scope of what we're proposing. So I hope that they do support us. you know, just have to wait and see. There's only so much we can do.
Julie, have you been on EDC since day one? That's what I thought. How many years
Thank
now?
you coming up on, I was pregnant with my second child, so who was about to turn 8. So yes, longer than I think I intended. I didn't realize it was a lifetime appointment, but here we are, thanks to Chris Robbins.
Okay. All right, we've got 6 more minutes. Anybody have any other questions for Julie before she goes to her other meeting? So Julie, we'll keep posted. Andrew's going to keep watching the planning board and maybe others too. So we'll know what's going on. And we'll do our part. We will vote at some point on the action bylaw when we see it.
Great, thank you. And again, I appreciate you guys reaching out to me and asking me to come here. And I'm certainly happy to talk to anybody and follow up with any questions or concerns you have. And I hope we can have your support at town meeting as well.
Okay, all right. Anybody else? Jason? Judy?
No.
Okay. Marika, thank you for coming too. And John, as always.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Have a
you.
wonderful evening.
Thanks
Okay.
so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Is Mark in the audience, Jason?
He is, and Brian is as well. Are you combining their topics or how you doing it? I'll bring Mark in.
So Brian, but you're meaning Brian Ballantyne?
I assume that's who BB is.
Okay.
Mark, am I right with that assessment? BB is Brian?
Yeah, I have to assume that BB is Brian. I can't see.
So I didn't know Brian was coming, so he's welcome to come in. I think this is going to be pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, I'd sent you an email, Kathy, that because you added on a couple of topics, and I said if you want to get into those things, I think Brian probably can speak to those better than I may be able to.
I know you did that, and I didn't reply because I knew I was already not going to talk about OPEB tonight. So I'm hoping that's not why Brian's here, and I have interrupted his night. But we're going to make this quick anyway. So you want to
Okay,
bring?
great. We have a 7:30 meeting in the morning, so
I know we do.
an
So-
early evening would be preferable.
So
Yeah.
I'll try to get through. So you can bring Brian in too. So while we're doing that, so let's just jump right into it. So the primary reason Mark is here tonight is to finalize the discussion on the Board of Selectmen proposed budget for fiscal year 22. So when we met last time, we met with Carla, Mark, Brian, and Paula Sabelli all at one time because they are all in townhouse and they've got some overlap as far as what they're doing. But the primary thing that we talked about last time was the 34-hour position that was vacant when Carol Ostras retired a few months ago. So I think we should start there, Mark, and just update us on where that's landed. Is it final? You guys have agreed it's 34 hours. It's going to be under BOS budget, even though regardless of how it's going to end up being shared. So can you just let us know where that stands at this point?
Well, you kind of just basically summarized everything pretty well, but yes. So the position is 34 hours. It is staying in the selectmen's budget. The selectmen would like to keep it there. It is evenly split between Brian's office and my office. Right now, I currently have Katie Berry transferred up out of the ZBA position into our office to provide coverage. She's also swinging her ZBA duties while she's there. And today met with Personnel Board on job description. Selectmen have had some thoughts and input as to things that are important to the position. And we're ready to, we're now ready to advertise and to hire. I think that it's a great time. Brian's a little bit shorthanded in his office right now. And I've been focusing more of Katie's efforts in Brian's office. So she's starting to, she's getting a little bit acclimated over there as to helping him. It's a busy time of year to begin with. I think that the way we've structured the position to provide services mainly to our office and also to Brian's office is a good structure. We're also going to be able to provide some payroll and payable services, EDC, IT, and conservation. And then there may be some additional tasks and projects that Melissa is looking for that we can provide assistance there as well. I know some people had talked about, trying to make this a Swiss Army knife of positions. And, let's add this in, let's add that in, let's add grants, let's add in. And my fear is that we're going to take this position and no one's going to get anything they thought. We're going to come up short on all fronts. So this is something that, once we get somebody in the position, we can understand exactly what the capabilities will be, what efficiencies can be gained, and then maybe we can come back and take a look at, seeing what else we can add into the position. Again, it's 34 hours. Maybe it is worth adding 6 more hours into the position at some point if we feel that we can cover other needs or provide other things that we're not already doing.
Okay, so Katie says there temporarily until you fill this position. Is that a true statement?
That is a true statement.
Okay. All right, so half and half, and then some of those halves are going to be shared with IT, EDC, and conservation.
Yeah, and those are my halves. I fully intend that Brian should get the full value out of 17 hours. And quite honestly, one of the discussions that we had about the position was, the split of the hours. Should we memorialize the split of the hours? And I said, look, this isn't like the position that's shared between Board of Health and assessors, where it's 2 buildings, it's 2 buildings that don't sit next to each other. There's travel in between the buildings. The selectman's office and the treasurer's office are like 10 feet apart. So somebody can sit in one position and serve both offices if need be. If things are really busy in Brian's office, with collections and bills are due and excise, focus can be shifted over there, more for that period of time and vice versa. So not really as concerned about making sure that, that you get 17 hours a week. I'm more concerned with the tasks and more concerned with making sure that, that the value is gained out of the position overall.
Okay. Good summary. Anybody have any further questions on the BOS budget? We're going to vote on it tonight. At least we're going to try to. So does anybody have any of the questions? They say it's final. Treasurer's final. BOS is final. So anybody have any further questions on either budget, since Brian's sitting here too?
Kathy, for Mark. Mark, is there any reason why you wouldn't go up to 40 hours just to make sure you can cover all these kind of new requirements?
You know what? It's too soon to tell whether I can or whether I can't, Andrew. And I really think that, I'd rather not raise the budget. There are other things that I think we're concerned about in trying to bring the budgets down in certain places. And you know what? So I'm comfortable with going with the 34 right now. And let's get a little bit of history and find out, what this position can or can't do. And if we think we need to add something else, we'll have a little bit of history to back it up. I'd hate to say, you know what, I want to go to 40 because I'm not sure we can do what we talked about doing. I'd rather say, let's try the 34. Let's see if it works. If it works, it's great. If I can do something else within the 34, even better. And if we come up a little bit short or we find that we need something else, then I've got at least some backing to go for, for a couple of additional hours.
All right.
That makes
So
sense.
FYI, their budget is, the proposed budget for Board of Selectmen is up 1.8% year over year from last year. Brian, do you remember what yours is up? I've got ClearGov open.
Brian's on mute.
That spacebar didn't work. I thought
Yeah.
it would.
I don't think he has the answer right at his fingertips, so it's probably better he was on mute.
I do, so don't worry, I got ClearGov up. So his is up 2.5%. So very reasonable increases. So I'm assuming, so this is it, guys. So speak now, forever hold your peace. Are you happy? with the
So
budget?
Kathy, I had held this last week for 3 reasons, and I
know.
spent a lot of time talking with Mark and making sure I got comfortable before the meeting. I guess I have one comment and maybe a few clarifications. Not that I oppose anything that has been said or is being proposed, but one, The main reason I held it was we talked a lot about this when Mark and Brian came in, and I think Carla and Paul were here that night as well. Like, this is what we need to do more of, like not have a Swiss Army knife in Mark's example of having them split between 10 departments, but I think this is a good, hopefully, role model for other departments, right? And you're talking about not necessarily all departments that fall, day to day under the budget they're being carried in. But there are obviously synergies between some of that. So I just wanted to commend the effort and the level of care that went into this, right? And not just filling a role with what had been there before. And that was my primary reason for holding it, because I think we also have a job to advocate as we think about some of these other departments. And obviously we have, more tenuous ones than others, but I just wanted to pause for that reason. Two, as I have pointed out, I think when Mark was here last time, obviously he's in a contract year. And Mark, I don't know, you need to go into any specifics, obviously, but the contract expires in October.
Yes.
And I just think advisory needs to know that obviously the line item that Mark is carrying right now may or may not change, right? Depending upon what the Board of Selectmen decide to do. So I just think, we just need to be aware that that line item may be something that would be potential for reserve fund transfer next year or interdepartmental at the end of the year. And then three, I spoke with Mark a lot about in-state travel. And I preface this is I looked at everyone's in-state travel. In Mark's department looked higher when looking at this one than some of the others, but some others are pretty high too. And my general comment is I think this line item needs to be looked at across the board in the town. In that in-state travel to me means mileage most often, but there are some one night sort of overnight hotel stays. So again, this isn't necessarily something for the Board of Selectmen budget, because this has nothing to do with tuition or nothing to do with conference registration fees. This is purely like lodging, travel type expenses. And I get the argument that was made last year that, look, we all knew that there was going to be no travel this year. It was pretty apparent, I think, as the town meeting came up. But don't cut it because you can never add it back in. But I would just ask, and I don't know the right way to do this, is I don't want to change the budget that's here unless someone has a strong, but that, there be some messaging, and this is probably better done by Board of Selectmen, but again, they don't appoint all of these departments, that we really consider whether hotel stays and all of these conferences are needed. And, is it the best use of not only the taxpayers' dollars for the travel expenses, but more of the time, right? Like, what is the benefit that the town's getting? And I think it's a delicate balance. So I'm using this because this is the first budget we voted on with any sort of sizable number. But I said to Mark, and I was very clear, I think this is across the board that people need to focus on these things. I think we're all going to be attending trainings for our jobs a little differently than what we used to. So, those
Okay, so we get it. We agree with you. I've already started the list for post ATM, and that one's already on it. As far as looking at it, we're not going to do anything before town meeting as far as the overall policy. There's not time for that. We just got to get this budget done, and then.
And I don't and Jason, I don't disagree with you. I mean, the budget was 6,340, 6,340 for fiscal 21. And yeah, because of what we've been dealing with for the last year, virtually nothing has been spent from that. We reduced it down to 3,700. And I can't tell you that in a non-pandemic year, I'd be looking to bring it back up to that 6,300 level, because I don't think you justify it. But I think that and could we trim it down a little bit further? Sure. Potentially. But again, I can't tell you what the impact would be. And like I answered Andrew's question a few minutes ago about having some history, I think it'd be better to get a little bit of history. I know that one of the items that comes out of that has been mileage for the IT manager, because basically, for anyone who uses their vehicle, for mileage reimbursement. And when Tom was here, all you saw Tom doing, all you saw was Tom's little white car driving all over town, visiting all of the departments and servicing all of the different departments. So, it's reduced from 6,300 to 3,700. I could take a look, and drop that down a little bit further. But like I said, I'm happy to have the discussion, as Kathy had said, moving forward, and keep it on the tickler file that it's something that we can address more globally moving forward too.
Yeah, I'm just looking for equity across all departments, would be what I would say. And I don't know that it's there or not there, but I think it's a good post town meeting item to look at. And Mark, you hit it right on the button, right? Main reason I'm not proposing anything different is you already cut it in half year over year, and you're not recommending going up or stuff like that. So I just think it's a broader item. You just were best to speak about it, because you can probably see across more departments than we can.
Jason, I think your point, not to belabor this, because I know Kathy wants to move on, but your point is a good one. And I would say your point about equity and consistency with the departments is probably accurate, that there probably is a little inconsistency. So that's just my opinion.
And one last item, and then I'll say nothing else, is that, I think for departments that may not have, mileage, may not have things in their budget, this tends to be the catch-all for those people too. So I think it's trying to, we go in cycles of let's centralize all the expenses in one place. Let's break them all out into the departments. I think if we figure on a path forward, then we can, do something similar to what we're trying to do with all of the building expenses, to try to have them all carried in one place, so it's a little easier to understand and evaluate them.
There's a lot of accounting things we could do to improve, but again, that's another discussion. So again, both your budgets top level are extremely reasonable. And I always think you two should kind of lead the pack. You should set the example, and you did. So we will be voting on those two shortly. Okay, so the only thing, Mark, that I want you to, and Brian, since you're here to weigh in on tonight, is the survey of fees. So we've seen what you have distributed. Do you consider that done at this point, or is there now another step? I mean, I read it, and not really sure what to conclude from it. The Chief Achilles looks like he has raised some fees, but not necessarily because of this study. He was doing it anyway. So is there another step to this to really look at what people have said? Or do we think that enough has been said, and we think we're where we should be? So is there another step, or are we done as far as you're concerned?
I mean, I think just because I collected the answers and everything, and Mark can add on to this, but I think at least I was surprised at how many departments do look at them on a somewhat regular basis. I didn't think they were, I thought some departments would be a little lax in kind of reviewing them, but most of them actually do review them on a regular basis. And most of them seem to have a handle on, on setting their fees in a reasonable manner. So that's just a general statement, but I don't really see another step, because me personally, I wasn't really alarmed by the results. So it comforted me a little bit. So that's all I have to say.
So I think this is a good time to continue to make a point that I've made, and I'm not sure anybody else agrees. I've never heard anybody say, yeah, she's right. But, let's say that our budget, I'm going to exaggerate. Let's say our budget is $50 million. Let's pick a number we can work with. And let's say half of it's real estate taxes funded, and half of it is everything else, including local revenue. Let's call it all local revenue. And let's say that we've got we've got a 3% increase we've got to deal with every year because of salaries. And of course, salaries are by far the biggest component of our budget. If we don't raise that other 25 million by the same 3%, then the real estate taxes would have to go up 6% to get to the 3%. Now I'm exaggerating, because our other revenue outside real estate taxes is not half, it's about 20%. But still, it would mean that in a year where we've got expenses going up 3%, we'd have to raise real estate taxes by 3.6%. If we don't raise all that other revenue by the same 3%. Now, some of it we can't control. We can't control what the state gives us. We know that. But that's why, on the local revenue that we bake into the tax rate increase, I still think that we need to try to see that rise at the same level that the real estate taxes are rising, so we don't continue to put more of a burden on the real estate side of it, because the local revenue is not bearing its fair share. So we'll talk more about it. And I know the advisory does not recommend local revenue. It's something that Carla does and Paul Sabelli works on. But I still think we've really got to try to keep that piece of it rising at the same rate as the expenses do. And I think there's ways to do that, and still keep free cash being very ample and not encroach upon that. All right, so that's all I've got for you guys. Anybody else have anything for
I
Mark,
had something on the
Brian?
fees.
On the fees? Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, so I took a slightly different view of the results of the survey. Like, to me, I don't know why the building commissioner and fire chief aren't on the next BOS agenda recommending an increase in their fees. They both of their submissions clearly showed that they were well below comparable communities. So to me, I struggle with that one. Those two, they clearly had revenue projections too. I don't want to go to the point of no brainer, but that's where I'm at in my head.
So you think, and I do too, I think there's more work to be done here. I just didn't know what Mark and Bryce said. So I don't want to be late tonight. I've added this to the post town meeting list as far as things we can work on. Town meeting is still not going to be.
I don't think we need to work on it. I think it goes back to the department heads. It's Mark and Brian talking to the departments and see if they're comfortable coming to the Board of Selectmen.
Well, we can help. We can see what we can do. But when you up a fee, it's not a one-shot thing. It sticks, and so it's an annuity. So the more we can increase our income, the better off we're going to be as far as keeping the tax levy down. So it's just another way to do that. All right. So noted, Jason. Anybody else want to comment on the fee report? All right.
I would just say, Kathy, looking at some of the fees, it seems like we're raising them more in line with what other towns are, but maybe not to the median or to a little bit further. So again, we're going to be kind of behind the 8 ball again. So we're raising them on the ones that we're raising, but maybe we should raise them a little bit extra so that we're, in that kind of, first quartile versus the median, so that we don't have to raise them again next year or the year after, kind of keep it solidified for a little while.
Well, if you're trying to get fees to go up, by 3%, and they're little fees, it's kind of hard to raise them, 30 cents and 30 cents. You'd have to go kind of on a step basis.
Yeah, but if we're raising, say, the smoke detector fee from $25 to $50, a lot of towns are 50, 75, or 100. So like we're kind of still at the so it's like, do we either just go to 75, or do we just kind of do it at 50 and then maybe we raise it to 75 2 years later, or 3 years later, or 5 years later?
Yeah, so I still think it's worth a discussion after town meeting as far as trying again to raise revenue. If we can just raise revenue, besides real estate taxes, we can get this budget so we don't have to start at 10% every year, start coming down. All right, so Mark and Brian, we've got an early morning, I know, so you guys can stay if you want to, but you certainly don't need to. So thank you for coming. And we are going to vote on both the budgets shortly.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, and we'll keep you posted. Thank you both. All righty. So I'm trying really hard to keep going here. I had my first COVID shot today, and my arm is truly killing me. So I'm just going as fast as I can. Okay. Let's do the 2 minutes. 2 sets of minutes. Get those out of the way, and we'll be totally caught up there. So Andrew, you want to take over?
Sure. So we have 2 sets of minutes, February 24 and March 3. I got some comments, very minor, from John Rooney on March 3, but I don't think we got any comments on February 24. So if there's comments, please let me know. I'm seeing people moving their heads.
I've got a couple if I can find it, but they were great shape.
Yes.
As for the next one, so I don't have much. So I didn't bother. Let's see. So 24th. So I've got 3 or 4 things. On line 24, state action plan for public health excellence, which is called Chapter 72. So just it is needed to declare between which. Okay. Let's see. And then going back up to line 20, adequately staffed, just get rid of for finance to adequately staffed to provide.
Okay.
Okay. Going down to second page, Roman numeral 6, starting with line 80. So I just want to make this clear because this is important. This is our mills tax, what we're recommending that the mills tax warrant article say. So in line 82, what I think it should say, the tax will become effective no earlier than October. Let's see. Approved at June 10. Yes, tax will become effective no earlier than October. And now, but see, now we know it's May, so I want to get the May in there too, because we know what the answer is. It's a May town meeting. So, and if May town meeting effective no earlier than July. So that's why I want that in there, because between we did this and now we know that the town meeting is May. Okay. Does that make sense, Claire?
So do you want it to say no earlier than November and then add if
October, not November, October is.
Okay, yeah.
Meeting, and then
Okay.
add no earlier than July if May town meeting, because it is a May
Got
town
it.
meeting. That's the
Okay.
one that's really relevant. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, does everybody agree with this? This one's important. This is not stupid. On 69, when we met with MPC, didn't we also, did we think that they also are supporting a second full-time person? And if we agree that's what they said, I think that should be in there because that's really important as
Yeah,
far as we end up.
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
Did
so.
they- Matt said that to the BOS, I think.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, well, I think he said it to us too. Go ahead, Andrew.
Just if I have one asterisk on there, I thought it was they agreed that we'd hire a new full-time person and then have a discussion about what that person wants to do.
They absolutely said, get the IT director hired first and then let him or her decide what's needed. That's true. But they also did say they thought, unless I'm crazy, that they thought themselves that we do need a second full-time person.
I agree with that statement. It was kind of I walked away with it saying they wanted it budgeted, but they weren't going to act on it until they had kind of a new director.
Right.
And then I think we talked a little bit about the SAP item, right? And whether that matters or not.
So are you saying that on line 70, instead of part-time, it should be full-time?
I'm just thinking, is part of this continued over to the March 3rd minutes?
No, this was
Okay.
an MPC meeting. Or what they thought. And so I don't know that they talked about needing a description for a part-time person, Andrew. I mean, I think that they said, let's get the full-time person in place, the IT director. Let's work with him to see what he thinks we need. But they also seem to agree with what we thought last year, which is a second full-time person is probably needed. So if everybody agrees with that, that's what I think it should say, because that's pretty important to document.
I mean,
Kathy,
they
I
already
think
have-
that
they already
is-
have
he
a-
said that. Kathy, I think he did say that. Let's see if he thinks he needs it. So,
And they already have a part-time person.
Right.
Right. So they already have 1.5 FTEs budgeted. So the only change that could possibly happen is to take that half and make it to a full. So I agree with that.
Okay, so 2 minor corrections now. On line 98, advisory will tentatively meet with BOS on April 13th. They haven't said yes yet. That's not their normal Tuesday night. So
Well, okay. Before we go, so what specifically do you want to do on line 69?
I would like to say that I'd like to get rid of the need for job description for part-time person. I don't think that was correct. So why don't
And
you
just
just say
say-
need for 5-year strategy and compensation for an IT director, period. So stop. Then say, MPC seemed to also agree adding a second full-time IT person. They supported adding a second full-time IT person, but wanted to wait until the IT director is hired to give that person a chance to basically weigh in on this.
I'll go back to confirm that from the tape.
All right, so let's go to the easy one. So 98, advisory will tentatively meet with Simon. They haven't said yes yet, so it's tentative. And then additional meetings, this is important. It's not, so Claire, see where you've got on line 108, additional meetings, you say 331, 47, 413, and then you say 414 is the meetings BOS, 413 is a tentative meeting.
Okay, so take out 414.
Yeah, just make it 413, but put tentative again, tentative.
Okay,
So they don't think we have scheduled them without their blessing.
okay.
Okay, all right, that's all I got for that one. All right, so, all right, you want to go on to, Andrew, you want to go on to 3.3 before we vote?
Well, do you want to take a vote on these minutes now, since they're,
That's what I'm asking you. What do you want to do? Vote on this one?
sounds like I should make a motion to move to approve
Do
the
it.
minutes as amended.
Let's do it.
I move that we approve the February 24 minutes as amended.
Second.
Roll call vote. Judy? Where'd Judy go? Do we still have a quorum without Judy? Yeah.
She went back into the waiting. She must have left, so I'm moving her back in. So come back to her while she.
There she comes. So Judy, unmute, and we need you to vote for the amended minutes for 2:24.
Yes, I vote aye.
Okay, Cook, aye. Andrew D.
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Andrew Pfaff,
Aye.
Mr. Rooney.
All right,
All right, 7-0. Okay,
Yeah.
Andrew, take back over 3-3.
On the March 3rd minutes, I'll just review the changes I got from John. So John, when I opened it, it had a lot of blue line, but I don't think those are really changes. It's just the red line changes. So one was on line 95. This is the roll call vote on Article 26. Has to do with lowering of the interest rate and income level on senior tax deferrals. It said Rooney abstained. The vote was Rooney aye. And then on line 118, after this is the recording the vote on the recreation budget. The vote is 6-0-1 in parentheses. You want to put JR abstain, which I recall you did abstain. Are
correct.
there any others?
Right. Yeah.
John, you're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, there are no others, but thank you for incorporating those.
So I've got a few. So let's go. So Claire, I love the matrix. That was great. The table. So can you keep doing that?
Sure.
And let's end up with one big matrix, maybe page by page. We voted this 3-3, and then have it 3-3 and then 3-10, so we can really keep track of what the votes are. And then I'll keep the spreadsheet going that shows the votes too. Okay, so if you look at the first line of that matrix, 5-5-1, and that first block should be 5-4-1.
Want to just run that one by me
So
again?
the very first block. So if you look at your blocks, right? So I see
Right.
the upper left-hand corner, the first one.
Yep.
Okay, top left. We've got all those listed. 5-5-1 should be 5-4-1.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and 145 is treasury. We didn't vote on it, so take out 145.
Okay.
Okay. And then would you just add in the third column under vote for the two we didn't vote, 122, 161, no vote,
Okay. Yeah.
just to be clear. Okay.
Can
now
you say
Jason-
that again? What you just said, you talked too fast.
sorry. So under the third column on the matrix, where she's right, I mean, we just didn't take a vote on 122 and 161, just put no vote. Type in no vote in those two blocks.
Okay.
So Jason, going back to line 32, line 39, where we're talking about the new standing, actually, it's not, Jason, it's not a question for you. You probably know the answer. I was thinking this capital. Okay, so this new standing ADA committee, the SPAC. Claire says on 39, she calls them two ad hoc committee members. Is that right? I don't know what that means.
It's the Mark Purple as the accessibility coordinator and the building inspector.
So I don't think that's the right name for them.
Ex officio probably is.
Yeah.
All right, so just change it.
Oh, okay. All right. Gotcha.
All right. That's all I've got.
Kathy, on the matrix, do you want to include the second?
Say that again.
So on the matrix, you had the vote, but you don't have who seconded it. I don't know if you want to add that, just an observation.
Do we have it in the minutes?
We have it in the minutes.
Roll call vote. How do we even, I don't see who even made the motion on this. So I don't see the motion.
It isn't on there.
Yeah, so if you're going
I
to
can add it if you prefer.
You have it above. You have it like, on 630.
I see what you're saying.
Where
Where
do you
the
see it?
individual ones are listed.
So like, Kathy, look at line 118,
Okay.
for instance. You
Yes.
you motion to do number 630, JB seconded it. But on the matrix, it just doesn't say JB second, roll call vote. I'm fine either way. It's just if people
Okay,
look
so
at them.
on 118, Casey moved, right? JB seconded. Okay, now when I go over
Right.
here to,
None of the okay, I see what it is. But on the matrix, none of the motions. Who made the motion is
yeah,
listed.
so all I'm saying, Andrew's on the matrix, who made the motion is not there either. So if you want the second, you ought to put the one who's made the motion also.
Sure,
right?
sure. It's just if you wanted it in there for cleanness, but I don't.
See,
it's
my
in the minutes,
purpose is
so-
for one person to make all these motions, same person second. That's not what ended up happening, I don't think. So we
Right.
gotta-
I can add it. It's not a problem.
All right, so add that to them.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Anything else on the 3 minutes? Andrew, you're happy?
Were there any documents reviewed?
Yeah, on that, I have usually just been right before sending them. At the process where like right before these are sent to the town clerk to get posted, I usually like go back and add those.
Okay, perfect.
And you're emailing the PDF of the ClearGov report is helpful for that.
No worries.
Yes, he is. All right, so everybody happy with 3 as amended? Okay, so can we have a motion to approve 3 as amended?
I move that we approve the March 3rd minutes as amended.
Second?
Second.
I second.
Okay, so Andrew beat Judy, so Andrew seconded. Roll call vote, Judy?
Aye, Bud's aye.
Cook, aye. Andrew D?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Mr. Martell?
Aye.
Andrew P?
Aye.
And Mr. Mooney?
Aye.
Okay, so 7-0. Okay, we're all caught up on minutes. Yay, yay. All right, let's vote on some more budgets. So I will screen share tonight, and what I've done before I put this on there, you're going to see one of 3 colors in the budget column. Black, which means those are not ready for voting. I'll explain why when we get there. The reds are the ones we did last week, so they're done. And the greens are the ones that I think we can do tonight unless someone disagrees. And so once we get done tonight, we're going to be done with most of the budgets. And I'll explain why we're not doing the ones that we're not doing. There's still some things on the table. Some things are extremely minor. For example, as you know, they're still trying to move anybody that had water in their department, they're trying to move it out and put it into John Parent's 159 budget that's got all the other utilities. So that's not completely done. So that, for example, it's not done on DPW, it's not done on fire. So they're still working on that. They've got, police didn't have it, so police is ready to vote on. All right, so there's only just a couple minor things. So we should finish them up on the 24th, I believe, other than anything that's still It's not settled like BOH. All right, so let me screen share this.
Hang on, I gotta give you co-host access. Give me 2 seconds. Should be all set.
Everybody see my spreadsheet?
Yes.
All right, I'll blow it up a little bit here. Okay, now everybody sees Christmas colors in black, red, green, black, in column D here where my cursor is.
Yes.
No one say no. Okay, so tonight I really do want one person to make the motions. There's not that many departments, so let's just do it one department at a time. The number's over here to the left. There's the name of it. There's the amount. So that's what you need to put in your motion. And then if we need to discuss it further or decide not to vote and hold it, we will. But these are the ones that I think are ready. So let me just tell you who they are. It's the BOS that we talked about with Mark, Brian's department treasurer, town clerk's not ready. As far as I know, Jason, I tried to get hold of Jim, but did not, which is not like him. So anyway, as far as I know, the $4,000 is still in here. In fact, I know it is. And I don't know if he has gone any further as far as trying to get the room all set. So we won't vote on his tonight. Zoning Board of Appeals, that's nothing but Katie Berry for the most part. ADA committee, vote on that one. Police, we're going to vote on. The building department. I didn't vote on that one last week because I didn't understand that $3,000 has been put in her budget for the first time for weights and measures. I do now, so I'll explain that when we get down there. Greg Martineau, the superintendent, has confirmed that he thinks schools are done. Algonquin's done too. They have all voted for the budget, so he thinks they're done. So we can take a vote and then we'll see if anything changes. But you know, they've got extremely reasonable year-over-year increases, so they very well may be done. All right. I'm going to change this one to green. The Algonquin exempt debt, that's actually not a final number. Let me back up. Algonquin exempt debt is fine. The settlement amount with Northborough here is not a final number, and it won't be final until July because Northborough looks at their interest rate, their average interest rate for their fiscal year on their stabilization money, and that's what gets applied to this. He's used 2% in this, which I think is probably plenty as far as this goes. So we might as well vote on it because it's not going to change before town meeting. So that one we'll vote on tonight too, unless somebody objects. So I'll change that one to green.
Kathy, did we ever hear back on this, the Algonquin capital need?
I've heard nothing.
Hold it. They're not
Hold
doing
it.
it.
Okay,
That's why capital didn't vote on it.
makes sense.
Okay, does that sound okay with everybody as far as what we're going to do with the green ones? So let's just do it one at a time, and then if you want to hold it, we'll hold it, and we'll talk about it, and then decide to vote or not. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to pick two people here. So Andrew Pfaff, why don't you make the motion, and Jason, why don't you second the motions, and then we should be able to go pretty fast here.
All right.
Okay.
I move that we accept, right? Or support?
Support.
Okay, I move that we support the budget number 122 Board of Selectmen for the fiscal year 22 budget in the amount of $460,430.
Second.
Any further discussion of that budget? Okay, roll call vote. Judy,
Bud's eye.
Cook, Aye. Mr. Dennington,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Andrew Pfaff,
Aye.
Mr. Mooney.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Jason.
Or
Excuse
me,
Go
right?
ahead.
Me,
Sorry,
Andrew.
sorry. I
Um,
call you each other all the time, so sorry. Yes, Andrew.
Okay, so I move that we support budget number 145, treasurer collector for fiscal year 22 in the amount of $235,336.
Second.
Judy, Jason is going to second them.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
I'm happy to second it.
Okay, so Jason seconded. Okay, roll call vote. Judy is first.
Okay. Aye.
Cook, aye. Mr. Dennington,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Mr. Mooney.
Aye.
Okay, 7-0, Claire. Okay, Jason, do you agree that town clerk is still not settled as far as the 4K for Iron Mountain storage?
Yeah, it's not settled, but we could move, a potential option is we can move to support a budget no greater than that amount. So that way, if he removes it, we don't have to revote it. I'll leave it up to you, but that's, I mean,
I just soon wait. So everybody remembers Jim would like to use the little room that used to house the equipment for the stuff that was on the flagpole. And right now, I guess he hasn't gotten permission to do it. So he's got 4K to send the stuff to Iron Mountain Storage. So he's hoping he can get that room, and that will save $3,000. I think he said it cost $1,000 to do whatever he's got to do to it. So we're just waiting for him to work it out or not work it out. Okay, zoning board of appeals. That's literally part-time salary for Katie Berry.
All right. I move that we support budget number 176 for zoning board of appeals for fiscal year 22 in the amount of $26,706.
second.
Any further discussion? Judy.
Bud's eye.
Oh, Judy. Cook, aye. Mr. Dennington,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Andrew Pfaff,
Aye.
Mr. Mooney.
Aye.
7-0. Okay, go ahead, Andrew. Excuse me, go ahead.
Sure.
It's Andrew.
Yeah, I move that we vote to support budget number 193 for the ADA committee for fiscal year 22 in the amount of $2,500.
Second.
Any further discussion? So I want to add into this, this is just the normal budget they've had. Even, with the new committee, they'll still have the same budget. This does not deal with what got brought up last week as far as the warrant article that did get approved last year, giving them $40,000 to basically hire the consultant to look at the town and see where we've got issues. Jason brought up the fact that they also got a grant. Well, I went back and looked. We knew they were going to get that grant last year. So what I don't know is, did they take that into account with what they needed in total? But I'll find out. So hopefully, if they didn't, maybe we can get that warrant article closed out. Once they're through with it, there'll be some money left over in it. Okay,
But Kathy, do we need to say anything in here that the budget should actually move to a new committee? I mean, in theory, it's a brand new committee.
which hasn't been approved yet
Correct.
until town meeting. I don't know, Andrew. So let's just vote it the way it is. Why don't you do this? Just say ADA/SPAC. How about that?
Sure. I amend my motion to say ADA committee or future SPAC committee.
Okay. All right. Second, Jason. They made it.
Second.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? Okay. Roll call vote. Judy.
Bud's eye.
Cook. Aye. Mr. Dennington.
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
Tim.
Aye.
Andrew.
Aye.
Mr. Mooney.
Right.
7-0, Claire. Okay, now here's the first of the big three, big three being police, fire, and DPW as far as, the really big budgets, besides schools, obviously. So Jason, I've been told he's done, that this is final. Do you agree?
I agree. I have email correspondence. You copied Mark and Brian on it as well. The only, because they constantly are hiring, right? Have a little bit of turnover. So he believes this is the right budget. The only thing that is not in here that he warned about was bulletproof vests are at risk of losing federal funding There's certain proposals out there. It was an amount less than $10,000. So he's not amending his budget. He just wanted us to be aware of that. Should it, come through, that it's not funded in normal course through federal grant funding. So, but that was all the chief had to say about his budget.
Okay. All right. So Andrew Pfaff,
I move that we support the budget number 210 for the police department in the amount of $2,486,596.
Second.
any further discussion? And John Rooney will abstain on this vote. Okay, roll call vote. Judy?
Buds, aye.
Cook, aye. Mr. Dennington?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Rooney?
Abstain.
Okay, so Claire, did you hear that? So Mr. Rooney has abstained on the police department budget, so it's 6-0-1.
Got it.
Okay. All right, Andrew, building department.
I move that we support budget number 241 for the building department for fiscal year 22 in the amount of $164,471.
Second.
Any further discussion? So let me just add, there's $3,000 in this budget. You may already know this because the cost of the state inspector coming in and doing the weights and measures work that he's got to do, we pay him. And then we turn around and bill whoever he's doing the weights and measures for. So we end up with the revenue being recouped. Apparently, Carla did not want this to be in the revolving fund for inspection fees for some reason. So she wanted it to be in the budget. So I don't know whose budget it was in before, but it's never been in this budget before. So that's why this increases more than it might be otherwise. Other than that, it's just cost of living increases for the two ladies that work there. Okay, anything else? All right, roll call vote. Judy?
Buds, aye.
Cook, aye. Mr. Dennington?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Mr. Pfaff?
Aye.
Mr. Rooney?
Aye.
Okay, so 7-0 for Department 241.
Hey, Kathy, why did you skip fire? You said we were voting on the big three, and I see that highlighted.
Yeah, because we're not voting on those two, Jason, unless, we could. I don't think it's moving much, but Brian said it's not done. So I asked him about the big three, and he came back and said police is done, fire's still got to be tweaked, and DPW's got to be tweaked, and it may be nothing other than the water. In Karen's case, it may be water if she's got water in there.
Okay.
And she hasn't done her 2.8%. So I'm just trying to see if we can't vote on truly the number that we see in that warrant article, and we know we voted on it, even
Okay.
though it may be trivial.
My understanding was the chief is done, so maybe it's the water thing. So that's why I asked the question.
Okay. But we will vote on it next time. It will be done. So are you okay with that explanation?
Yeah. I want Brian to say it's ready to go.
Yep.
But
And
the chief views it is ready to go.
And he did. And this was this morning when he said it was not ready to go. So this is real time. Okay, so now let's go down to the 3 school lines. Andrew?
All right, I move that we support budget number 300, elected school committee for fiscal year 22 in the amount of $500.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Judy?
Buds, aye.
Cook, aye. Mr. Dennington?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
7-0, Claire. Okay, the big one that dwarfs everything.
All right, I move that we support budget number 301 for Southborough Schools for fiscal year 22 in the amount of $21,734,434.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Judy?
Buds, aye.
Cook, aye. Mr. Dennington?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Mr. Mooney.
Aye.
Okay, 7-0, Claire, on 66 Southborough schools. Okay, Andrew,
I move that we support budget number 302 for Algonquin for fiscal year 22 in the amount of $7,541,363.
Second.
any further discussion?
Kathy, can you pull your screen down?
Yeah, sorry. You want it up, right? You want to see it go up?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So we've had a motion, we've had a second, and there's no further discussion. Roll
Buds
call,
eye.
roll call vote. Judy,
Buds eye.
Cook, aye. AD,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Mr. Pfaff,
Aye.
Mr. Mooney,
You're on mute.
John, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry, kept pressing it again. Aye.
7-0. Okay, last one, Andrew.
I move that we support budget 941 for legal settlement regional for fiscal year 22 in the amount of $229,900.
Second.
Any further discussion? So I will add to this, this is the next to last payment. We got this payment and one more and we're done. So woohoo, finally. Okay, all right, roll call vote. Judy,
Buds eye.
Cook, aye. Andrew,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Andrew Pfaff,
Aye.
Mr. Rooney.
Aye.
Okay, 7-0. All right, so we are making great progress here. All right, so I expect to wrap up most everything else. Now, I was expecting a text tonight from Youth and Family Services. I got it. Let's see. Okay, so Youth and Family Services has voted to officially remove the $20,000 in their budget for the interface contract. However, for those that are concerned, and Judy, I'm looking at you, it is absolutely going to be funded through Friends of the Southborough Youth Commission, who is most likely going to get a grant from the Southborough Community Fund. So I'm very confident it's going to get funded in full for the second year. Now, what they voted is they voted to take it out and they'd like to see it funded by the town in year 3. So that's probably in their minutes. So if we want to go back up and vote on that one, it's fine with me. Do you guys want to get rid of that one tonight? So that 269.12 is going to be 249.12. So do you want to do it?
Good with that.
Okay, so let me make it green and change the number. So Judy, you're okay with my explanation?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So Andrew, you want to go back up to line 53?
I move that we support budget number 542 for Youth Commission for fiscal year 22 in the amount of $249,012.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Judy,
Buds eye.
Cook, aye. Andrew D,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Andrew P,
Aye.
Mr. Rooney.
Aye.
Okay. All right, that's great. So another one out of the way. Okay, so I think we are in pretty good shape as far as voting on individual budgets. Okay, what else tonight? All right, let me do my chair report. It's very quick. So Peter Lapine, I think that's the way you say his last name, is missing in action. So he just doesn't respond to emails anymore. So I'm not sure what happened to him. I don't know if he is thinking about not going forth his article or not, but he has now responded to a couple emails. He didn't come last week. He has responded. So I'll still try to reach him, but so far, no show. Mark Purple has said they have a finalist for the IT position. So they are in the process of trying to bring that to closure. So there's one finalist. So hopefully we'll get some good news in the next few days about that. And then the last one, I sent you guys the reply from Mary Lou Woodford after she saw our meeting last week. You saw that. You saw my reply to her. And then you maybe hopefully saw the reply today from Nancy Sacco that I forwarded to you. So where would you guys like to go with this? I haven't tried to put together a budget based on what we talked about last week, but I think that's where we've got to go next. Is anyone, let me do it this way. Has anyone changed their mind as far as what they thought at the end of last week's meeting? Based on the emails that they've seen from the two of them?
Well, I think we should support her, the budget. I voted to support her budget.
Well,
I think I'm the only one.
We haven't voted on her budget yet, Judy.
No, isn't that the one that I was the only one who wanted to give them entirely what they asked for and everybody else cut it?
So if we end up having a split vote on that budget, Judy, then we are going to make that clear in the advisory report, because it sounds like they're going to try to go forward with their full budget at town meeting. So we'll make it clear how advisory has voted on this. Okay, but if the majority of advisory wants to vote on a reduced budget, which we are in our authority to do, then you would vote against that. And someone else may do it too. And then we'll make sure that it's clear that there was a split vote with it. Okay. All right.
Let me just say, can I say one thing about it?
Absolutely.
I thought that she had a very good point that for us to be trying to figure out how they could save money is unacceptable. We're not the experts. She is, and her board is. And if we value what they do, then we support what they think it costs to do it. And we don't second guess. I think we spent a lot of time at the meeting last week saying, well, they don't have to do this and they can do that. Instead, we're not in that situation. They know. And I think it's a very important department and it should be fully funded.
Judy, we've been pushing back on every department that's come here, second guessing everything they've done, looking to save money.
It's not about second guessing. It's about listening to what they say.
But they're no different than any other board that comes before us asking for money. I mean, it's our job to look at what's being asked of town meeting in terms of appropriations and what the impact overall is, and to question them and to make certain. I mean, it's absolutely within our purview to question what they're appropriating and how they're spending it. It really bothers me when people on different boards say it's not our business. It's our primary business. This is why we exist. If not for this purpose, then we shouldn't even be meeting.
Well, that's a little strong.
Let's be careful about that.
I stand by what I said. I think that this is an unusual situation. Nobody could have predicted that we would have COVID, that Kathy would have a sore arm. And incidentally, Kathy, they told me to wave my arm in the air a lot and it helped. And I think that what this taught us was that we will hit crises that we don't anticipate or in any way expect. And in this case, I would have liked to have seen them more fully funded. So I stand by my vote.
Kathy, I think it's important to note in the notes that, you know what, we essentially voted in favor of everything they wanted, with the exception, as I understand it, the copier, and a tentative understanding about a part-time person for the new full-time director to ultimately decide on the status of part versus full. So, and plus in voting for that, I don't know what percentage increase that is over last year's, but I believe it's significant. And it's not as if we turned a deaf ear and try to supplant our knowledge with someone else's. We certainly understood and agreed as to the staffing requirements. Ours just had one slight change, and that is, let's get the full-time director on board and have him or her say what he or she needs.
Kathy?
Go ahead, Andrew.
I was just going to say, a takeaway for me from this, the whole exchange is there might be a debate at the town meeting about this, which I think is, healthy. And I mean, I see part of our role, to Tim's point is I agree with what Tim said. We, question all these budgets, but our job is to try to reduce areas of disagreement so there's not a super confusing town meeting. This is the only line item in the whole budget where there's a really, there's a debate, right? And so if advisory said we think it should, and again, it's certainly not a decrease. It's, to John's point, we're recommending an increase, but it's not as big as what Board of Health did. If the debate was, we presented the town meeting, this is what we think it should be. It should not be as big as the Board of Health wanted. And then the Board of Health said, no, we think there's a very good case for more. And then the town meeting decided, that's healthy. And if ultimately the town meeting decides to give Board of Health what they want, my feelings aren't hurt. It's the town meeting decides. I just think that we might be in a position where we're trying to create an artificial consensus on this issue, where instead the best thing might be to do is to just have the town meeting presented with different viewpoints and let them decide.
So Judy, I'm going to speak to you directly. I was surprised at what both of the ladies on the board said to us. It was almost like they said, we didn't listen. I don't think they listened to what we said. I thought we went a long way to basically supporting what they want. We supported the full-time director. The only thing we really didn't support was the full-time nurse. We said, we want your HIPAA stuff to be safe. We just want the IT director to tell us how to do it and not buy a $10,000 machine if that's not the right way to do it. We didn't say we don't want HIPAA to be dealt with. We absolutely do. So we support them as far as HIPAA stuff. We agree HIPAA should be complied with. Absolutely. We just want to make sure that the IT director has a chance to weigh in and basically help us keep HIPAA information safe throughout the town, not just there. Police department, fire department, wherever else, Youth and Family Services. So we didn't say no to that. We said we agree. We just don't know that the $10,000 machine is the right answer. As far as Barbara Sperry goes, she already works 24 hours for Board of Health, and she works 16 for Possibility. I called Possibility and I said, Paul, what do you want to do here? He goes, Kathy, I will be just like this past year. I will be totally flexible. Barbara will be able to work the hours she needs to for them. So he basically said he's going to give them more of her hours. So they already had 24. They're going to get more if they need them. So I don't know why we didn't really almost, do what they want to with that one. So, the only thing we didn't do is the part-time nurse, because we struggle with that one, but we still want to hear more about that. We want, per Jason's suggestion, we want the fire department and Youth and Family Services to get together to talk about things that they do that may overlap. So we end up with what we should have in that position. So we didn't say no. We just said there's no more that needs to be done to figure out that piece of it. And then lastly, we want to give the new director a chance to really roll up their sleeves and figure out what we should have permanently, including working with the state on what the state's going to offer as far as regionalization. I thought what we came up with was totally reasonable and was much more than halfway toward what they wanted. And if you read those emails, you think that we said no to everything.
So Kathy, I'll start by, I thought your email summarizing our meeting, even though there are differing views, as we can just even tell in this discussion, was phenomenal. I just wanted, I know those are hard emails to write back to. I just wanted to take a second to commend you on that. It's also very dangerous, right? To have multiple members of another board, replying to emails and offering opinions without public meetings. And I'd commend this committee for keeping our discussions, in the public and, having these discussions live. And, I agree with, everything that's been said in terms of the summary of the last meeting. I think we can do better though as a town in working together. And my takeaway from the past week is I had an action item. You all asked me to go and take an action item. And I think any of you that know me, I usually follow up on my action items. I didn't follow up on my action item because I couldn't consciously start a discussion around that when we were receiving emails with that tone and tenor, especially when, I personally had put my neck out there back in December to try to get that vaccine application submitted. Now, no one knew where the state was going to go, and hopefully that still comes to fruition. But I think, while we may not reach a consensus, like Andrew was saying, I would hope, and have been part of many debates in this town in my limited time in town government, that even if you're on different sides of the argument, there should be some sort of mutual respect for why people are challenging certain positions. And I think if advisory sat here and rubber stamped every budget and didn't have the department heads in, and in this case, we had the department in, I think, at least 2 to 3 times at this point, and rightfully so, and didn't cut their time off and didn't limit it. I just think we can all do better. And I'm not saying, I just, in terms of collaboration, to bring something forward. And I guess I'll kind of just end my reaction with, every year, advisory, board of selectmen, and town meeting are presented with needs of every town department. And I look at when Chief Paulus started, and he, put a survey, that study down on the table, to the board of selectmen and said, this is what I need to get to. And it was done by an expert. Well, tell him it took 8 years. He didn't present that all in one full swoop. The fire department, they added 1 person to a shift over time. Right, they didn't add 4 in 1 year. We saw it with youth and family over the last 3 to 4 years. It's just, no matter how great the need is, we have to balance needs across. I don't know how many departments are on your piece of paper, and given what Board of Health has gone through, I don't think anyone would ever in the past have supported 100% increase of any town department. That's essentially what we're supporting. With where we're at right now, it's just a matter of, is it 200 or more percent, depending on where these final numbers land. So that's kind of, my takeaway of where I'm at. I haven't changed any of my position, and, there continues to be great stories in other municipalities around us that are larger than us, that are operating with departments the same size or less than what we currently have, not what we're budgeting to have. So, and they are weathering the pandemic well. I'm sure those employees are working their tails off, but it can work. We just need to work, more together. And I would hope that the Board of Health, comes back to the table and tries to work with us, because there may be, a way to advance this without causing whatever percentage increase, is showing, because we're almost there. We're just not at the end game that they want.
Kathy, one thing on the Board of Health is on ClearGov, the attachment that they have with the spreadsheet for the salaries has the director at 177,000 and the nurse at 85.
See, that's where I got there. You guys corrected me. Remember?
Yeah, yeah. But then in the notes section on the salaries, it has 110 and 95. So I don't know. I think we just need to clarify that it's a $60,000 swing. So I think it's an extra 30% added to their budget. So I don't know.
Okay, so that we can get clarified. I'm confident of that.
And then, whichever one is right, they should, if Brian can remove the document from ClearGov. or the notes.
So Jason, specifically, what would you recommend as the next step here? Wait and see another week or so, what may or may not transpire. Board, just so you know, Board of Selectmen have been kept up to date with this. So they've heard all this. So they're not coming at this as not, and I don't know if they're meeting with Board of Health before we meet with them. I actually think they may be. So there may be a discussion they're going to have to. So I have no idea what they're thinking as far as their positions. Although I think Sam Stiver supports their budget as written, but I don't know what the other four are thinking.
Yeah, Kathy, could we make this at town meeting?
I was just thinking the same thing. Mark is still here. So can you bring Mark back in real quick, Jason, if he doesn't mind? I think we can. You know, this is all one article, but I believe that we do have a way to put the individual votes next to it. I think we did that a couple years ago. So we could.
Mark, you're
Hey,
back
Mark.
in.
Sorry, Mark. He looks pretty relaxed.
He's on the phone.
He doesn't know he's back in.
Yeah.
Hello. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I was taking another phone call.
So Mark, we're talking about the Board of Health budget, and the question on the table is, if we were to not take a formal position on that one budget, is a warrant article where we put the votes and the approval or not by BOS advisory, does it let us single out a budget? So is it an all or nothing the way we present it in the actual printed warrant article?
In the printed, no, I think that the way that we've done this in the past is that selectmen and advisory agree on everything. Usually the way it's been the past several years, selectmen and advisory pretty much agreed on everything with a few exceptions. And if there's exceptions, so we basically make the comment that selectmen and advisory, concur with except where noted. So if there's a difference, we can note it in each budget.
So we
Hey,
can put a note.
Mark, quick question. Do you know where the selectmen are on their agenda on voting on this one?
So I know that we'll be talking about that at our meeting on Tuesday. I believe the schedule up for discussion, John, is that the selectmen, they have their regular meeting next Tuesday. They are going to have a special meeting on the 23rd where they will talk about warrant articles and maybe some consent agenda items. On April 6th, they're going to be having departments in to talk about their budgets. And I think that's probably where the discussion, with Board of Health would happen.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's your answer, Andrew. We could at town meeting on this one if we wanted to, but I'm not sure that's the right way to go either. So we just gotta keep talking about this until we
I've seen, I'm sorry, since you pulled me in, I'll just make one other comment.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen, and I think everybody has seen some of the email traffic, that has gone on about some of this, and it appears that, regardless of how advisory views Board of Health's proposed budget or selectmen view that, there doesn't appear to be a pathway to consensus on this regarding Board of Health. Board of Health seems to be more than willing to take the case to town meeting floor and make selectmen and or advisory or anybody else amend it down on the floor. And, they're more than willing to have a floor fight.
So, Mark, just to be clear, as far as what has to happen here, they are an independent board. They can vote their own budget, and that's the one that's got to be printed in the warrant. Is that true?
Correct. They're elected boards. They stipulate the number that goes in the warrant, and so that's the number that will show up in the warrant. And again, it'll be the responsibility of if people don't agree, they'll have to amend it down.
Okay, so
Hey,
we'll have to.
Kathy, I'm not sure. Mark mentioned, that we may be at the end of the road, but, from Mary Lou's missive, I just want to make sure she understands where we supported and where we did not, because I'm not sure in her email that information was captured. So, Mark, if the selectmen are going to discuss it, do you know if they have any intention to ask Mary Lou to come in?
Oh, I do think that they are going to, for the budgets that they do want to have in, and the departments they want to have in to discuss, they are going to invite people in. And I know that you carry a pretty good track record, John, of mediating some of these disputes and everything in that. I'm just saying from the email correspondence and everything that I've seen, I'm not sure if there's at least a defined path of resolution, but we still have time to try to figure that out.
So to that, oh, sorry, Andrew, go ahead.
This isn't really avoiding like I guess Mark would be more of a floor fight if, the board, the warrant has the Board of Health number, and then we request that it goes down, or someone does, because even if there was a consensus, Board of Selectmen advisory said this, and Board of Health, this is the right number, and it was 150 or 200%, right? There a lot of the people who attend that meeting, they get out the pens, they go through, you just look for the percentage entries, circle those, call those, and then this would have a discussion even if there was a consensus around a 200% increase anyway.
Well, if the BOS and or advisory, want that printed number to come down, they would, if we would hold it. You go through, you say hold, so you get held, right? And they vote on everything else, and we go back to the held budgets, and then the discussion would start. So advisory and or board selectmen would basically propose to amend it down, and then that would open up the discussion as to what's going on.
So Kathy, to your question about what to do next, and I think John's kind of onto something. I think we literally need to break out the components of their budget, right? Get the right numbers, to Andrew's point, right? Of, okay, if we're all in agreement on a full-time director, here's your baseline, right? So Board of Health supports it, advisory supports it, Board of Selectmen to be determined, right? Then the public health nurse, right? What is Board of Health presenting? Where are we at, right? Is it a part-time? Is it multiple part-times, right? I think there are a few different scenarios there. And then on the administrator, again, what Board of Health has, where advisory is at. And I think when you start looking at what those numbers actually are on a piece of paper, it may start to bring it all together for them that we're not really as far off as the emails would seem to imply.
I agree. And Jason, I meant to do that before tonight. I just ran out of time. So I agree that let's put it on a piece of paper. What we think that, I think at least the majority support. Judy wants to support the whole thing, but at least what I think everybody else supports, which is the full-time director, either two part-time nurses, or the one full-time split. So the two permutations there, and then no change with the admin. Now, just so you know, Mark, she just doesn't understand how many phone calls got made to try to satisfy this. I called Paul Sabelli too, and I said, is it possible that you could share in the 34-hour one? He goes, no. It's always split too much. It sounds like you agree with that with your Swiss knife comment. So I did at least ask the question, because if you look at Paul Sabelli's budget, he's got Barbara Speary in there. And of course, they've got Barbara Speary in there. Barbara Speary in there is full-time. So one's going to have to, one's not right. One's not going to be correct in the end.
Well, I think, Kathy, I think to Jason's point, the question is Board of Health, is this an all or nothing discussion for Board of Health? Or as Jason said, are they willing to pull apart the pieces and figure out where there's consensus and where the issues lie? And then maybe you can get to, you can work to a resolution on pieces. But everything that I've seen so far, at least in the emails that have gone back and forth, and I thought that your email that that I saw kind of really articulated things pretty well. it just seemed to be, it's, Board of Health is elected. It's the Board of Health's position. It's the Board of Health to determine what the Board of Health needs. And thank you very much. So, like I said, but we've got some time, and hopefully we can soften some of those things and try to gain some consensus.
And the one that might be solvable before town meeting, because so, if the IT director were to be hired in short order, we could ask that person to look at this, pretty soon. So maybe they could get that one resolved to their satisfaction as far as the making sure that HIPAA info is protected, either with a new copy machine or without. Okay, all right, so it sounds like we'll put the numbers together, right? And why don't I do this, put the numbers together and reach out to Mary Lou one more time with those numbers, and show them to her, and show her that we are not as far apart as if you read her and Nancy's emails, you would conclude. So Mary Lou is probably an excellent nurse and excellent in healthcare, and she says we know nothing about it, and she's probably pretty close to being right. But I don't think that finances are her forte either. So if I put it on a piece of paper for her, maybe that really would help. Okay, everybody agree as far as next step goes? Okay, I don't see any downside. Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. Sorry, Mark, I have pulled you in unexpectedly, but I saw you sitting out there, and the question that was being asked was right up your alley. Okay. Moving on. So there's one more article we can vote on real quick if you want to get one more vote out tonight, which is, remember Jim Haggerty when he was here, he had 3, and we couldn't vote on 28 because the language wasn't squared away. So it's squared away now. And it's a pretty simple warrant article. All he's trying to do is clarify a couple things. It's got 3 parts to it. One is we can have the town meeting outside Southborough, e.g. Algonquin, if something goes wrong in the town of Southborough, Trier is not available or whatever. That's one part of it. Then he makes it clear where the actual warrant gets posted, and he makes clear where the annual report gets posted. Here, here, here. So it's pretty perfunctory. So if you want to wait, we can, but we can also get that one out of the way tonight too, if you're in the mood to do that one. Okay, I see Andrew Pfaff nodded, yes.
I'm ready.
Okay,
I'm
good.
fine.
I knew you would be, Jason, so I wouldn't worry about you. Okay, so does anybody want to read this real quick, or are you just happy with what it says? I mean, it really is very cut and dry. I don't think there's going to be any controversy in this one too. He's just clarifying a couple things and then saying we can meet at outside Southborough if we have to.
I'm
Yeah,
ready to vote, Kathy.
Okay.
Could you
all
just
right.
put it up just so we have it there, just to look at real quick?
So there's now 2. So we're on to the second version of the warrant. So I sent you this one too. So you guys have the most current one. Okay, everybody see Article 28? I'll make it bigger if you can see it. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Yeah, well,
Not that anymore.
So see where my cursor is? It's right here. So this is the whole thing right there.
Okay.
So I'll give everybody a quick minute to read it. Everybody ready? Okay, so Andrew, you want to make the motion? Jason, you second it?
I move that we support Article 28 from the draft warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Judy?
Bud's eye.
Cook, aye. Mr. Dennington?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Mr. Pfaff?
Aye.
Mr. Rooney?
All right.
Okay, 7-0. One more done. Check it off. Okay. Last substantive thing is to talk about the overall budget. So nothing's much has changed since last week. We've got like a 4.17 year-over-year increase. The $20,000 coming out of youth and family services will take that down a little bit. So we're still continuing to head inch by inch in a good direction. So things are looking pretty good to get into the threes before we're done, I think. So we will see. One thing that is in here, I have no idea why Article 25 is in here, and no one else seems to either. So I will talk. I didn't have my normal meeting with Mark this morning, but I'm having it tomorrow. So I'll try to figure out what's going on with this purchase of National Grid parcel. Capital Planning didn't vet it. Supposedly it's $250,000 is what they've appraised it at. So I have no idea where that article's in here. So we'll get that figured out before next week. Okay. So here's the food for thought for between now and our next meeting, which is 2 weeks from tonight. We're going to be meeting. The majority of that night is going to be spent with capital planning. I have resigned today from capital planning so that we would have a quorum for that meeting. So that part's done. So we will have a quorum. Andrew, Pfaff, and Jason will be sitting as capital planning members that night as far as that discussion goes. So they won't be able to vote, but they will be able to present the capital planning committee recommendation for fiscal year 22. The rest of the committee will be here too, so you'll get to meet them. And we'll spend a lot of time with it. So I don't know how Jason feels, but every time that I feel, and this is how I used to feel in the Capital Budget Committee too. Every time you think you're done, then something comes out of the woodwork that you didn't know about. So we're going to discuss this tonight. I've sent you the emails to and from Karen Galligan with some information in it. So we'll talk about it in 2 weeks, but long story short, I had no idea until the last few days that the project that she is planning on undertaking at St. Mark's Road, where she got the $290,000 Safe Streets grant, the town contribution to that project is $1 million. I knew we were supposed to contribute something from Chapter 90 money, but I assumed it was small, trivial. So I've asked various people if they knew it was $1 million, and I've gotten no to every time I've asked it. Marty Healy didn't know it was $1 million. So I'm not quite sure how this happened, how an application went in that asked for a grant to support a project that we are on the hook for $1 million that's supposed to go through in the next couple months. I mean, the thing is out to bid right now. So anyway, we'll talk more about it on the next meeting. So I just want you guys to think about this and take a look at it. Long story short, she's going to be using all of the town warrant money and all of the Chapter 90 money to finish the downtown road project, to do that project, and then also to take care of the issue where the crossing of the railroad tracks downtown, well, on the two sides, wasn't dealt with as far as her budget goes. Boris and I are going to meet with her again shortly to talk about it. They didn't realize that when they met with her last week. It seemed quite surprised when they realized it's quite an expensive addition. So we haven't signed a road contract since 18. So my question to her is, doesn't this worry you that we have no, what I'm calling normal road money to do other projects that normally get done? So she normally signs a 2-year contract for about $1.5 million. The town contributes $325 a year or $400 a year to that. She gets $400 or $435 or so from the state, and that money's always funded the biannual road contract. So I just didn't realize she was stockpiling Chapter 90 money so much for the downtown project. I knew she was having to save some of it. I didn't know it was to this extent, where everything else is not, there's nothing else being done. Maybe it doesn't need to be done. I don't know that there's anything that needs to be done in the town, but I would think that there is. When I was on the predecessor capital budget committee, we were told that, there's a plan for, every section of town to be repaved. And, you sign these contracts, and every 2 years you do about $1.5 million worth of work. So clearly that's changed. And some of you may say, I knew all that, but I'm not sure we did. So we started looking at the 325 that was on the table to be approved this year, and found out a lot more information than what I think was known. So again, you didn't think we were going to discuss this tonight, so I'm not ready to discuss it unless Jason wants to say something as
all I will say is the Board of Selectmen need to release that money. So there's a critical check in the system. So while I think the discussion is very warranted, I'm eager to see how they deal with it next week before capital planning comes in. So maybe Kathy, if one of us can send a summary, or either we'll verbally go through it when capital planning comes in, because I didn't plan to necessarily touch on it in the presentation other than to say what we were allocating to road maintenance, but it may trigger a larger discussion of how capital planning should be involved with prioritization, but then it becomes a delicate balance between, operating a department and, proper allocation of funds. But I think this one has surprised a lot of people. So kudos for all involved, with their due diligence. And I think the right answer will prevail, but let's just let the system work in the next couple of weeks before we come in.
Right. Okay. We're going to postpone the OPEB discussion. I sent Sam Stivers, had, as usual, was in an audience last week, so he pulled up pretty much everything you need to know about OPEB. So this would give everybody a couple of weeks in their spare time to do some reading. But all of Mr. Mooney's questions are answered in what Sam sent us. And nothing we discussed last week was wrong. There is $2 million there, but it does look like one of you said this, and you're right. The plan is for when the pension becomes fully funded first, then we amp up the contribution to OPEB so that by the early 2040s, it is supposed to be fully funded, believe it or not. So it clearly says that in the actuarial report. So we'll talk more about it when we've got some more time, but at least you've got now all the information that you should have in case you want to read it. All right. Any questions about that?
Just a quick comment is that it sounds like a lot of towns are actually considering bonding the entire liability, given rates. I think I saw Quincy was looking at a $400 million bond.
Really?
It had done some math of what it actually would save the taxpayers longer term, not cost. It made no sense to me until I read, I have to find the article again. I don't remember where I saw it.
I'd love to see it. So, when you think about it, that probably is worth looking at.
I'd like to understand how it's working too.
Yeah.
Jason, that's interesting.
Yeah. And this is where Mark and Brian will be helpful to Kathy whenever they come in to discuss it. I feel like Wellesley did something not too long ago and just nipped this whole thing and moved on from having to discuss it ever again.
Well, Wellesley's got more money than we do, Jason.
Understood. I think right, but a different paradigm is Quincy, which is I think a city, is also thinking that. So just looking at different demographics, and we've got to fit into one of them. Maybe not the full boat, but I will find that and circulate it.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. All right. Moving on. I think we're done. So we got the standing items I'm going to skip over. So the calendar hasn't changed. So just to repeat, it's the next meeting. We got next week off. So 3/24, we're going to meet real quick with conservation just to hear what they've got to say, make sure they think they're covered on the admin side. And then we'll go right to CPC. So the majority of the night will be with capital planning. 3/31, 4/7, 4/13. So let me tell you what's going to happen on those dates. Okay, so CPC is going to come in on 3/31 to meet with us, and by then they should have all their finances in pretty good shape. So we're going to do them on 3/31. Personnel board will be here on April 7th, as will ASABET. ASABET wants to talk to us. And then that should be it as far as meeting with people. I don't think I've left anybody out. And then maybe, you know, we still got to get Peter Lapine if he'll come in. If not, we'll just have to vote based on what we know and listen to Chief Paulus. You ready?
Right.
Okay. Any other matters properly brought forth? Stop the share here.
Public comment.
Yeah, let me just see who's out there. Any public comment? See none. Judy,
I move to adjourn.
Second.
roll call vote. Judy,
Bud's eye.
Cook, aye. Jason,
Aye.
Andrew D,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Andrew Pfaff,
Aye.
Mr. Rooney.
Aye.
7-0. So thank you guys. Have a nice week off, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Hope you feel
Night all.
better.
And I'll keep you posted